So we lose a lot in those females that lose their pregnancies between, say, day 23 and 40. Those losses are what really cost us. And I think where Coriolon or HCG can help us is trying to recover some of those potential late pregnancy losses.
Well, Dr. Cliff Lamb, thank you for giving us some of your time, and we're just grateful to get a little bit of the wisdom on the HCG and how to better set up some recipients. So thank you.
Well, you're welcome. It's good to get a chance to chat and talk about some of the research that we've done over the last 15 to 20 years. And I've always enjoyed my interactions with Boyd, so I think that this is great. He's always quite stimulating and looking for things that are new, and so great to have a chance to share this with everybody.
Yes, well, we're happy to have you. We're going to be better for this time. I know we are. So can you give us just a little bit of background on where the research came from, maybe some basics on HCG for our clients, just so they have a little bit of a reference point?
Yeah, so HCG stands for human chorionic gonadotropin. And so it's a gonadotropin that seems to, or not seems to, we know through some of the research that we've done over the years that it enhances or causes hypertrophy of the corpus luteum. And so we've done some really initial studies with a product that is commercially available in the US under the trade name Coriolon. And that was initially developed to help eliminate cysts, and it was given at very high doses. And so what we started doing is we started reducing the amounts, the doses, to somewhere between 500 and 2,000 international units. The prescribed dose on a Coriolon bottle for eliminating cysts was about 10,000 international units. So what we started doing is we did a series of experiments to see if we could turn over follicles and start a new follicular wave in cows, in young heifers and cows, to initiate follicular waves and actually stimulate females to start cycling. But we also noticed, I mean, we knew that it did a really good job at those really low doses at 500 to 1,000 international units. And so we found out that it didn't work very well in synchronization systems before or at the time of artificial insemination. But when we added it a week after an artificial insemination, we started seeing pregnancy rates increases of somewhere in the range of 5 to 7%. And so we thought, well, you know, if it works for artificial insemination, we should try this in embryo transfer systems. And so it's a series. It took us about 6 or 7 years to get to this point of trying multiple ways of utilizing it. We figured out where it doesn't work, but we know that it seems to work very, very well when an embryo technician transfers an embryo. If you administer a small dose of about 1,000 international units at embryo transfer, we're seeing about a 5 to 7% improvement in pregnancy rates. And most of those improvements tend to come in those animals that are a little more high risk. They might be a little bit thinner, or they might be a little bit shorter postpartum. So your high risk recipients are the ones that we seem to recover the pregnancies better than the cows that are in good shape, that are cycling and things like that.
Okay. Yeah. And that's exactly our plan, really, is to go with that, 1,000 international unit, that 1 cc dose of Coriolon, and we're going to be giving it to all recipients because it's going to be, difficult to kind of which one's going to get it. So, they're all going to get it, and it's, we're excited about how this is going to affect our pregnancy rates, in a positive way. So in this research, was there kind of that aha moment that really got you excited? Was it probably the pregnancy rate increase that you saw? But I mean, what really fueled this?
Yeah, so I think the first thing that really excited us was we noticed how good follicle turnover we got even in these low doses of HCG, right? It was amazing that we could turn over really small follicles with HCG, so much better than we could with any other commercial product on the market. Most of those are GnRH based products. So whereas this is the gonadotropin itself. And so so that was the first stage where we said, well, this is doing some amazing things. The disappointing thing for us is trying to incorporate that into a synchronization program where we saw a decrease in pregnancy rates of about 10 to 13% at any stage within 2 weeks of actually AIing cows. We saw decreases in pregnancy rates, all at least around 10%. And so that was disappointing because it was doing a great job of synchronizing follicular waves, getting cows in a perfect stage to AI. But then for some reason, we were getting low pregnancy rates. And so, yeah, I think when we knew that this would work in ET programs was when we first tried it 7 days after AI, and we started seeing, we seem to be able to recover some of these pregnancies that may have otherwise died. And so what we started noticing is that those animals that had HCG tended to allow the CL to survive a little bit longer. So perhaps get through maternal recognition of pregnancy, those types of things. And we were like, well, it's got to work for these high risk animals. And that's in fact what we found out.
Yes, so that's great. I mean, you've got those, maybe the body condition, is a little less, those, but you don't necessarily know some of the other factors that you were talking about. So that's where HCG is really, I think, going to help us. And you just said that yourself. And so my next question, I'm thinking farmers and ranchers right now, our clients that we work with, the two biggest things I would imagine for them is time and money, right? So is HCG worth the cost? We're talking about Coriolon. Is it worth the cost? What do you say about that?
Yeah, that's a good question. And it's really tough to figure out what the value is of a pregnancy to an embryo, right? I think everybody values that differently. But so what I'll talk about is the cost of the injection, and then producers can do the calculations. If you're going to get an extra one pregnancy out of every 20 transfers, well, then that's a really good thing. And if that value is, if there is that value for a producer, then they should use it. If there's not that value for the producer, they shouldn't use it. And so when you, so a Coriolon comes in a 10, I think Coriolon is sold at about somewhere in the range of $35 to $50 for a 10 international unit vial. And so if you're going to dilute that down to about 1,000 international units, you're going to get 10 doses out of one vial. So you just do the math. You're looking at somewhere in the range. I mean, just easy math. You're thinking somewhere around $5 to inject, $5 or maybe a little bit less to inject an injection of Coriolon. And so to get that extra 5 to 7% pregnancies, it'll probably cost you about $100 for a pregnancy. And so if that pregnancy is worth $100 more, then I think it's worth you considering incorporating Coriolon into your program or HCG into your program.
Absolutely. Yeah, it makes sense. So, we've talked a lot about how this has been quite a long time. You said the last 15 years, total probably on these projects. Where does research go from here? Is there still research with HCG, or is it kind of moving in a different direction? Just wondered your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so the one concern that I always have with HCG is that it's a really small part of the market for a pharmaceutical company. I mean, it's not a huge selling product. And so as long as the product is available, there's value in using it. And so when we first did the research and actually found out the increase in an embryo transfer program, shortly after that, they stopped producing Coriolon for a period of time, right? And so we sort of lost the impetus because we did not know if it was ever going to come back. And so we haven't done a lot of follow-up experiments utilizing HCG since then, because we were afraid that we would never have a product available in the US. As it turns out, it is back on the market, and it is available right now. And I think the areas that obviously that we can continue to focus on is how do we manage to use it in such a way that it enhances corpus luteum function to decrease embryo loss. So, and when I'm talking about embryo loss, I'm not really as concerned about the loss of a pregnancy from transfer to, say, day 21, because we know that those recipients will come back into heat, and we can either put another embryo in them, or they can be mated by a bull or whatever. But where the biggest cost in an embryo transfer program is days open of a recipient, right? And so we lose a lot in those females that lose their pregnancies between, say, day 23 and 40. Those losses are what really cost us. And I think where Coriolon or HCG can help us is trying to recover some of those potential late pregnancy losses.
Sure. Yeah, makes sense. So yeah, we've talked about HCG, we've talked about how we're going to use it, and I think we've covered exactly what farmers and ranchers need to know about that. Do you have any other tips? We're talking specifically to our clients here, or anyone in our channels that we're trying to help. I mean, that's the purpose of our Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, is just to educate and to help whoever we can. So do you have any other tips on, let's just talk specifically on recipients setting up for embryo transfer aside from the HCG?
Yep. I think that's a good question, right? Before I answer that, though, what I'm going to say is I think that the thing that we find the most difficult to speak to producers about is having realistic expectations. Very often, a veterinarian who'll come and do an embryo, initiate or conduct an embryo transfer program, they will tell somebody that they could get 60% pregnancy rates on fresh embryos, or just over 60% on fresh embryos, just over 50% on frozen embryos. And I think that those are realistic expectations. But remember that those are also averages. And so if you're only setting up 10 recipients and you get 4 pregnant, that doesn't mean to say that it was a bad day, right? Unfortunately, the stars were just not aligned for you that day. Next time you do it, you could get 8 out of 10 pregnant. And so just understand that you've got to have realistic expectations. There are a lot of factors that go into getting a cow pregnant, and it's so simple to simply blame the person doing the embryo transfer. And generally, that's usually the most consistent part of the whole program, because they do this every single day. So where you need to start thinking about then is looking at some of your recipient-based factors. And really, it's selection of recipients is probably the biggest thing, right? Is making sure you pick the right recipients to receive embryos. And what I tell a lot of people is the best recipients that we find are young cows. So cows that are somewhere that have had at least 1 calf, and probably less than 5 calves, somewhere in that range. They tend to be the most fertile, but they've also raised calves before. And so selecting those young cows that calve early in the calving season, so that when you set them up to be recipients, they've very likely already started their estrus cycles, and they're already cycling by the time you start your embryo transfer program. So if you want the best success, it's selecting which females you're going to use as recipients. You may get really good pregnancy rates using heifers, but heifers have never raised calves before. So you run into the issues of you're going to likely get more embryo loss. So you might end up with more heifers that are pregnant, but they'll lose more embryos before they calve. And so you may not end up with as many live calves. And those heifers have never raised calves before. So you've put all of this money into the genetics, but you might end up with a product that is not quite as good in the end. And then older cows, obviously, we eliminate older cows from a herd because, and most of it's for fertility. And so using older cows, you're starting to get into the part of the herd that starts having a reduction in fertility. So selection is important. The other thing is making sure that they're on an increasing plane of nutrition, but they're not fat, right? So making sure that approaching the breeding season, before you put in embryos for that 45 days or so before you start putting in embryos, that those cows are actually increasing in nutrition so that metabolically they feel like they are in better shape and they'll have a better chance of retaining those pregnancies. So there's also a lot of, I call it witchcraft. There's a lot of things that you hear. Everybody's always looking for a silver bullet, but nothing overcomes good management. Have a good herd health program in place. Make sure that they're on a good plane of nutrition. Make sure you have a decent mineral program there. And so as long as you're doing all of those things right, you're going to play the percentages and you're going to consistently get good pregnancy rates. The problem that we often have is people are always changing because they're always looking for the next silver bullet. And sometimes this year it might be injectable mineral. Next year it might be some special supplement that a company is selling you. I mean, all of this continues to come through, but just being consistent and doing it in a way that is consistently good is probably going to yield you better results year after year.
Yeah. Well, those are great tips. And I mean, you've given us a lot of great information here. I mean, we're going to be able to tell clients exactly what we're going to be doing with HCG now, and we've even got some extra tips on the side. So you've been very generous with your time, Dr. Lamb. We thank you so much for this. And tell us where people could find out more about you or research projects that you are involved in.
Yeah, good question, Miles. So, I mean, I'm at Texas A&M University. I'm the department head there, and I mean, we have about 70 faculty in the department. 55 of those faculty are doing something in cattle. And so I would really encourage folks to go to our Texas A&M Department of Animal Science website, and they will see a variety of information anywhere from the gamut, from nutrition, genetics, any of those things. Yeah. The other recommendation would be to go to the Beef Reproduction Task Force website. And I'm a member of the Beef Reproduction Task Force, where we look at protocols that are working. And the best place to go for that is just to type in Beef Repro into a search engine, and that'll come up, beefrepro.org, I believe.
Yeah. So. Yep. That's great. Well, we will definitely, anywhere we post this interview, we will link to both of those that you said, and we'll be excited about some more things. We were excited for your presentation at the Embryo Transfer Convention, as Dr. Bien has talked to you about. So hopefully we get some increased results, and I wish there was a way to just physically tell you that we got that 5 to 7% and just call you up and congratulate you. But we'll just say that that's what's going to happen, and we'll go with it from there.
That sounds great. Well, I wish everybody luck, right? We want to get everybody as high pregnancy rates as we can, and I wish everybody luck. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, we're just trying to get everyone the best calves they've ever seen. So that's our goal. Well, Dr. Lamb, thank you for your time, and we hope to hear from you soon.
Thanks a lot, Miles. Yep. Call anytime.